Hey, good morning everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel again. I am in a great mood. We are finally starting to see some great weather outside. It has been high 70s and low 80s, so I am ecstatic. It's so nice to finally be outside and not have to be stuck inside. I've said it a couple of times already, but it has been a long winter here in the Midwest in Kansas City, and I am just so happy to finally be outside. So that is improving my mood. It's so nice to actually in the morning be able to come and film with you guys and not have to be freezing or have to do the filming inside. So I can actually be here in my garage filming for you guys and talking a little bit about the Corvette, and that's exactly what we are going to do. I wanted to make this video talking about the cold air intake, and this is probably one of the most controversial issues with the Corvette. I don't really know why, to be honest. It's one of those things that, everybody has their opinion on like exhaust, but it doesn't seem like on the forums people get so agitated and start fighting over, the performance numbers or just their opinions like they do on the cold air intakes. And maybe it's because, people do understand the exhaust systems really don't add that much performance, but with the cold air intake, people start throwing out some crazy numbers. And actually, I'm gonna get to that with the cold air intake that I went ahead and installed. And of course, I'm gonna show you guys that and talk a little bit about the installation. But first, let's talk about some of the possibilities for the Corvette and the C6 platform. It really, I guess some of these you can put on all different types of Corvettes, but for the C6 platform, you have Halitech, you have Callaway, you have K&N, and you have Veraram. There are countless different types of cold air intakes that you can actually put on the Corvette. And actually you could even go and find, I believe, like an LS7 cold air intake and bring it back to the LS2 or LS3 design. I've read that on the forums, but I ultimately went with the Veraram. I read enough good things about it, and of course plenty of people that were not, huge fans of the Veraram system, or I think mostly did not like the accusations that they made. And that is that they could increase the horsepower by 40 or somewhere around there, 45 horsepower, which I'm gonna go ahead and say I don't know if I completely believe. I didn't buy it for that reasoning. I bought it because I do believe it makes the car breathe better. And the ram air design of the Veraram system, I really liked it. I think that I could understand where it would work, and I think that, especially out on the highway where you're really picking up speed and a lot of extra air is going into the engine, I really could see it just being able to be a much better cold air intake. The old one was this box system, and I'll actually get it out, I still have it, and I could just see where it might filter the air pretty good, but it was just enclosed. There was no really fresh air able to get on it. There's a shroud that was in the front that I actually had to cut for the Veraram, and it's one of those things that in the forums people talk about, you want to at least cut the shroud. So I liked that the Veraram required you to do that. That's where you get all that extra new air forcing from the front of the vehicle into the engine. But yeah, when I got the Veraram, and I think it was about $350, I'll throw an image up here on eBay, and I'll probably even throw in a link if you guys are interested in looking at it. But I think it was about 350 bucks, and when I got it, I thought that the quality was okay. It wasn't probably as good as some of these like nice carbon fiber Halitech cold air intakes that I've seen. The Halitechs are very nice. K&N even makes some nice filters, but I read some iffy things about that. A lot of people didn't think they were all that great, and they really didn't change up the design aspect of the cold air intake over the stock. So I wasn't really interested in the K&N cold air intakes. But, so I went ahead and ordered it, and I got it, and I started the installation process, and I will say, cutting the shroud is just as hard or maybe even harder than they talk about it. I actually, to make it easier, removed my hood so I could get to the front of the vehicle. It is so hard to get to, and you have to be very careful not to cut your radiator, because the shroud, as you're using a box cutting knife, you can nick that radiator and cause a whole host of problems for yourself. So I highly recommend, if you do end up doing it yourself, that you take it slow. I really did. I took my time. I wanted to get it done. I was so ready to be getting it done, but I just took my time, and it turned out great. I was finally able to get everything pretty much done, honestly, in one evening, and it just, like I said, I just took my time, and it wasn't all that bad. other than cutting the shroud. I did not like having to cut the shroud. That did kind of suck, but it's something I had to do, and now it's worth it. And everything pretty much came together. I ran into a small few snags. The fitting is a little tough. You got to make sure you really get the fitment in there perfect, or you're going to have some problems. But I was able to finally finagle it in there. But I'm going to actually pop the hood and show you guys the Veraram, and then I'm going to show you guys the old air intake. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so there is the Veraram cold air intake that I have installed, and of course I have the LS2 motor because this is an 07. In 08 they moved over to the LS3, but I've been really happy with this motor. I think it makes about 30 horsepower less than the newer LS3, and of course they have even newer ones since then, but I really was happy with this. And so the old cold air intake actually just sat right here as a boxed unit, and like I said, I'm going to grab that here in a second. But as you can see, I actually had to cut down into it, and then we'll take it around here. And I showed you guys this in the video talking about the upgrades, but you can see where the ram air, that's it right there, and it sits, and all that air gets pushed up through the cold air intake and up into the throttle body. So it really was a cool design. I was really happy with it. And it really wasn't that bad setting everything up. Like I said, the biggest thing was cutting this shroud. I had to cut it, and then you put this actually weather stripping on it, and then it just sits around it, and it makes sure that you don't have any major debris flying up into the engine, and then you actually have your filter box, which is, if I can get this to go, right here. And so I like the design, and I do truly feel like it definitely makes the car breathe better. And like I said, I've said that before. It's hard for me to say whether it really makes more power or not. I have no tune. I think a tune would help, and it may just be the tune alone that helps. I don't know if the cold air intake itself will help. I actually talked to a gentleman. I had a few questions while I was installing it, and of course they're convinced it makes much more power. I do feel like at the back of my mind it did make more power after I had it installed. Now, granted, that could be a completely psychological effect. You want the things that you buy and add to your car to make more power. So I am a little, controversial on that aspect of whether I'm right or not. I really would have to get it on the dyno to tell you guys whether it makes more power or not. I'm just being honest. I do, like I said, I do feel like it does, but I just want you guys to be aware that that could be a completely mental aspect of it. But I've been super happy with it. I was a little worried that piece down there that I showed you on the it sucks all the air in. I was afraid that would actually, with all the air, especially at higher speeds, would get pushed. But after I actually installed it, and there's two set screws that hold it all in place, plus you have obviously the body holding it in place. It is very firm, and I've had a couple pretty high-speed runs in this vehicle after I got it kind of going, and I've had no issue. I can kind of push on it, and it is firm and steady. And so overall, I really do think that they have a great design. I think the build quality so-so. I think, like I said, the Halitech designs might be a little bit better, but and I would love if this was carbon fiber. I think that would look awesome, but nonetheless, it's not a huge deal. It kind of did what I wanted, and it changed from the box design. So let me actually grab that old box design. I'm gonna throw it up here and show you guys. I'm trying to get all this in the shot here, but as you can see, this is the old box design, and it is just not great. It actually starting to collect some dust. As you can see, I had it in my garage, on the edge of my garage for storage. Of course, I want to keep it, but it's just completely boxed in. And then over the top of it, which is not there anymore, was this piece. And so, I mean, it looked really nice as far as it was all contained, but I kind of actually like this. To me, adds more aggressive look to the engine bay. So I really was pretty happy with that. And then this is the shroud that I cut. And this is the kind of crazy design that you have to cut around. and it's not perfect. I didn't get it completely perfect, obviously, but I was more worried about the radiator. I didn't want to cut it, so I had to kind of watch that and be really careful. I'm not some mechanic king at all. I've done a few things on my own with the vehicle, but I don't try to tout myself as some, I'm not a Tavarish, that's for sure. So I do have to be careful what it is that I do with the vehicle. So I went really slow, and again, it's not perfect, but I felt like this is something that I could take on, and again, it worked out great. It really wasn't that hard. So if any of you guys are interested in doing something like this, and if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. I will answer any of the questions you guys have. But like I said, if you're looking for something like this, I highly recommend it as an upgrade. It just gives it a more aggressive look, and it's cool, kind of the bragging rights of being able to say, you added a cold air intake yourself onto the vehicle, and it's not just a pop-in box. You do have to cut the shroud, you do have to install some of the bolts, you have to, add it onto the throttle body, and take out the MAF sensor and put it back in. So there's a few things you do have to do. So I do highly recommend, if anybody's looking, making this upgrade. It's a great addition, and it definitely, in one way or another, improves over this old crappy box design. One thing I wanted to mention, guys, before I go ahead and close out this video, is I did end up taking off, and I might have already said it, but I ended up taking off the front hood. It made it so much easier to work on. It was really tough to actually work kind of in that back corner, so I took the hood off, and it made it so much easier to work and get to the shroud and cut it properly. So if you do end up doing that, that's a kind of a pro tip that I would highly recommend. Pro tip on top of that is make sure you align your hood bolts back correctly. I actually just threw the hood bolts back in place and everything seemed, great. And then when I went to go shut it, my fitment was off. So do a dry fit run when you kind of bolt them down, lay it down, and I bet your fitment might be off a little bit, and there's actually a little bit of play with those bolts that you can use to kind of lift up one side or the other and make sure your fitment is better. And you can actually even improve your current fitment by doing that if you want. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate all the support. You guys, again, are always awesome. And if you guys like this video, please smash that like button, subscribe to join the family. I got tons of new content that's going to be coming out, especially with it improving in weather. I have some really fun videos coming in the pipeline, so I appreciate it. You all have a great day and take care. See you tomorrow.